The dress. "When I'm down in the dumps," said Val, "I get a new dress." Trish had often wondered where they came from. Now she knew. "One more and that's it," said Trish as she poured the last dregs of the morning amontillado. They lived in a place called Crankham, a valley town once famous for its woolen mills, but now for its high-end boutiques and delicatessens. Their once loved rural lifestyle had become a monotonous round of dinner parties. A local author, famous for sexy prose and graphic front covers, had confirmed what the girls already knew. Crankham sucked. From time to time, the friends relieved their boredom by attempting suicide. They usually overdosed on Valium, though once Val tried gassing herself in the fan-assisted oven. These half-hearted attempts were made close to a telephone, whereby the friends might call each other in case there was a chance of success. "I suppose you'll be at the Wine and Cheese tonight to meet the new curate?" "What the hell I'm going to wear, I don't know," said Trish, knowing full well that she had pre-planned a shocking pink off-the-shoulder number that would completely upstage her friend. "They say he's very young." "Come again, darling," said Trish. "The new curate. He's very young." Val clocked a flicker of interest in Trish's bloodshot eyes. The new curate was from Clapham. The Reverend Watts rode a motorbike. He'd been seen at the bus shelter with the village lads. Armed with a pack of camels, he believed that they would respond to his hands-on approach, although some crystal meth passing through a needle might have pleased them better. It was the Reverend's intention to provide these disadvantaged youngsters with a supervised discotheque in the old disused cinema. He reckoned without the parish council, whose members had no intention of letting him provide any such thing. The girls' husbands, Bob and Terry, ran a company called Crankham Curiosities Limited. They had cleverly harnessed the work of local craftspersons. Old ladies with failing eyesight embroidered fake Quaker samplers, and bearded potters fashioned crude bowls from local clay, which were then exported to gullible Americans as genuine antiques. They were hippies turned Ratners, happily helicoptering between Gloucestershire and Heathrow while their wives lived in the lap of bitter luxury. Terry had converted Crankham's old railway station into a mansion. The ladies' waiting room had become a super lounge where his wife Trish waited for something, for anything to happen. Bob had turned an old barn into a similar nightmare for Val. It was the day of the Wine and Cheese. Trish had arranged a final fitting of a special dress from her very own clothes designer, a young entrepreneur called Tarquin. She had designs, not only on his designs, but on his body. She found many excuses to visit his fitting rooms, which were on the top floor of his mother's Regency house in Cheltenham. Being unable to turn a fitting session into anything more intimate, she had ordered a dress so costly that her demands on Tarquin's time could be infinite. She had insisted that the final fitting be in her waiting room. He was due at any moment, but Val was still lingering drunkenly. How might she be gently got rid of? "Piss off, would you, darling? I'm having a fitting." "Well, it might be useful to have around, don't you think?" "Sod off, now," said Trish, emphasizing the point by throwing a box of heated curlers at her. Val sodded off. She drove angrily home in the little BMW she kept for shopping. And then she began to feel anxious. What on earth would she wear tonight? Val's wardrobe harboured garments from all periods of her life. She'd even kept a pair of bib-and-braced denims from her hippie days. She'd levered them on one day and given them an airing along the high street. It was in the butcher's that she realised the futility of squeezing 45-year-old buttocks into college jeans. Groping for a coin in the back pocket, she triggered off a concertina of stitching down the seam, which didn't stop until it exposed her rear end for the flabby and pendulous arrangement it had become. Such recollections drove her straight for the Valium. She washed a dozen down with half a bottle of Bristol cream. Collapsing on the Chesterfield telephone within easy reach, she prepared to die. Meanwhile, at the waiting room, Trish took a quick ginseng jab and changed into a blue silk housecoat. As she heard the purr of Tarquin's MG, she took the phone off the hook and lit a silk cut. Tarquin vaulted over the side of his car and minced up to the door. He carried a swatch of bright pink crepe de chine. Accustomed as he was to lady customers in house gowns with nothing on underneath, Tarquin was, alas, not up and coming in the way Trish wished. His short life had taught him two things: that there was money in dresses, and that was all there was in them. He entered the waiting room at pace and went briskly to work. Pins in mouth, he stretched the fabric tightly round the torso that towered over him. He pinned securely. He made few comments and showed not the slightest interest in the contours and orifices on offer. He gritted his teeth as, ash and sherry showering over him, he beavered away. He tried hard to think only of the job in hand, but within minutes he was spitting out pins and running furiously towards the MG. He escaped in a haze of burning rubber, leaving a lengthy skid mark on the drive. As he neared the gates, a BMW screeched to a halt on his front bumper. As a gentleman, he did the proper thing. He checked his car for damage and then went to the aid of the lady now slumped over the wheel. But before he could reach the driver's door, Trish had yanked it off its hinges. He stood back and gaped. As tightly enveloped in his lovely crepe de chine, Trish dragged Val out onto the drive. "What the hell are you doing here? I thought I told you to piss off!" she screamed as she tugged handfuls of hair from Val's head. Still suffering from the mortifying effect of discovering Trish's phone was off the hook, Val surrendered meekly to wave upon wave of punches and expletives. Eventually, worn out, clapped out, without the will to live, Trish collapsed like a pink blancmange on top of Val. That was when the Reverend Watts came by. With a 2000cc twin-engined chrome-plated God cycle purring beneath his cassock, he zipped through the gates on a pastoral fact-finding mission. He was just in time to see Tarquin's MG disappear up the lane, dragging half the hedge with it. The curate could hardly believe his luck. This was indeed a refreshing change from visiting the old and sick or drugged teens in a bus shelter. Here was a heaven-sent opportunity to deliver muscular Christianity at the point of need. He wasted no time. Diving in, he separated the amorphous pile, gently loosened clothing, vigorously slapped willing cheeks, straddled each in turn, and with a surprising expertise, offered up a generous ecclesiastical kiss of life. This was indeed manhood from heaven. His helmet crowned him like a halo as he carried his flock, one under each arm, into the ladies' waiting room where, his rod and staff of comfort rising proudly to the occasion, he continued his holy, yet wholly unnecessary ministry. The story circulated that Trish had been attacked by a sex maniac who, unable to strangle her with a length of pink fabric, escaped in a sports car. The timely intervention of Val and the arrival of the Reverend Watts had prevented a ghastly crime. No one believed it. Val and Trish never made it to the wine and cheese that evening. Tarquin's dress was ripped up into squares, which were used to polish the candlesticks in the church. Wednesday afternoons After polishing, dusting, and a little ineffectual hoovering, the girls would retire to the vicarage. Tea with the Reverend Watts was the highlight of their week and always lasted long enough to provoke gossip in the village. 6 months later, Val and Trish were guests of honour at the official opening of Crankham's new disco for teenagers. The curate's dream had at last come true, thanks to extremely generous sponsorship from Crankham Curiosities Limited.